Good Wednesday morning, and thank you for joining us here on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Jason Hackett. Let's get to your headlines. Right now, the Minnesota BCA is investigating a death and use of force incident south of the cities. Just before we came on air, they said they are on scene in rural Albert Lea. That's about an hour and a half south of Minneapolis. Audrey Russo is there right now.
2 people are dead and several law enforcement officers are on leave after they shot and killed a suspect during a domestic incident here in rural Albert Lea last night. I'll step out of the way so you can get a closer look at the scene this morning. The Freeborn County Sheriff's Office says they responded to an address off of County Road 46 last night around 7:15 for reports of a domestic disturbance possibly involving guns. The Sheriff's Office says the suspect, an adult male, had left the scene and was heading to neighboring Mower County. Law enforcement pursued him back to this address, and when the suspect exited his car, officers then shot and killed him. Now, as they continue to investigate the property, they say they also found a woman who was dead, and they believe she was killed prior to law enforcement's arrival. Now, the sheriff says part of this incident was captured on body-worn camera, so that's, of course, going to be investigated over the next couple of days in conjunction with the Minnesota BCA. But again, several law enforcement officers are on leave because of this domestic incident. Back to you.
Audrey, thank you very much. This morning, a Minneapolis mother is spreading awareness about the text to 911 option after police say her 2-year-old daughter was killed in a murder-suicide earlier this week. Trisha Princeton said her partner of 7 years had struggled with his mental health since his father's death 2 years ago and had refused to seek help. Princeton told us he was holding them captive the night of the shooting and she was unable to call 911. Now she hopes others will learn what she didn't know.
She made me want to do good and go far in life. Now I just feel so empty. I think the whole situation could have been either prevented or a different outcome for sure.
A text to 911 became available in Minnesota in 2017, allowing you to text your location and the type of emergency you're experiencing to the number 911, the same way you would text any other number. Trisha has an online fundraiser, meanwhile, to help with her daughter Kinsley's funeral costs. If you'd like to help, we have a link to it under this story on KARE11.com. This morning, we're learning more about last week's federal raids in the Twin Cities, one of them in Minneapolis, sparking protests when people mistakenly thought it was an ICE raid. Michelle Beck is in Minneapolis unpacking this big story.
Well, good morning, guys. Last week's raids were part of a massive investigation into money laundering, narcotics trafficking, and human trafficking. And these details are incredible, and we only know them because they are connected with one woman who is now federally charged. But let me be clear, Isabel Lopez was not the reason federal authorities raided this Minneapolis Mexican restaurant last week. A crowd showed up mistakenly thinking this raid was about immigration enforcement. Lopez is accused of assaulting officers, even throwing a softball at a deputy's back. Court documents tell us federal agents had to leave the scene for safety before they could collect all the evidence they wanted for one huge investigation. Authorities had been suspecting the work of an international drug trafficking group, and they had already found things like 900 pounds of crystal meth at a Burnsville storage unit. And guys, 900 pounds of crystal meth, that amounts to up to $25 million when it comes to street value. We also know that last week's raids at that Minneapolis restaurant was one among 8 different Twin Cities locations. Search warrants and raids happening there as well, and evidence that turned out from those searches there includes some gold-plated firearms. Meanwhile, for Isabel Lopez, we know that currently she is at the Sherburne County Jail, and tomorrow she will be in court. Back to you.
Michelle, thank you very much. As more protests pop up across the country, President Trump is defending his controversial moves to send Marines and National Guard to L.A. while threatening more force. This as lawmakers on Capitol Hill are seizing on the politics of it all and weighing into the fray. NBC's Chris Pallone has the latest from Washington.
About 700 Marines are set to arrive in Los Angeles today, where sources say they could provide protection and transportation for ICE agents as those immigration raids continue to occur across the area. The streets of downtown Los Angeles largely quiet overnight after the city's mayor instituted a mandatory curfew. It followed another day of protests against widespread federal immigration raids. California Governor Gavin Newsom condemned the violent confrontations between protesters and police, which started Friday.
I want to be clear about this. If you incite violence or destroy our communities, you're going to be held to account.
But Newsom once again accused President Trump of making the situation worse. The president sending thousands of National Guard troops and hundreds of Marines to L.A. against the wishes of state and local leaders. Newsom now suing to send them home.
He again chose escalation. He chose more force. He chose theatrics over public safety. We do not want our streets militarized by our own armed forces, not in LA, not in California, not anywhere.
Speaking to soldiers in North Carolina, President Trump defended the deployments.
If we didn't do this, Los Angeles would burn. It would be burning to the ground right now, just like the houses burned to the ground just a few months ago.
On Capitol Hill, Democrats pressed Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on the price tag for the National Guard deployment.
Could the Secretary please address the budget? Thank you.
You asked about the situation in Los Angeles, and we believe ICE agents should be allowed to be safe in doing their operations.
The Pentagon revealing it will cost roughly $134 million. And it appears the Trump administration will soon target other cities.
Should people expect to see similar operations in the rest of the country?
Yeah.
Two sources tell NBC News that ICE special response teams will be deployed to 5 cities across the country run by Democratic leadership. We're told those cities are Seattle, Chicago, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and New York, but it is unclear when ICE raids would begin in those cities. In Washington, Chris Pallone, now back to you.
Well, check of the markets this morning as Wall Street reacts to a trade framework agreement reached by the U.S. and China after 2 days of talks in London. Specific details about that agreement have not been released, but you can see the Dow so far slightly up. Officials for both sides will now take the proposal back to their leaders for approval. The major sticking points have been China's control over so-called rare earth minerals and its access to semiconductor technology originating from the U.S. New video here of a minute of silence in Austria this morning to honor the 10 victims killed in a school shooting there on Tuesday. This happened at a high school in the city of Graz. Police say the alleged shooter took his own life after the rampage. Authorities believe many of the victims were students at the school and that they are very early on in their investigation.
We were able to start the investigation immediately after the killing spree. In the meantime, we have also carried out a house search at the home address of the 21-year-old suspect from the district of Graz and the surrounding area, and have been able to establish that there was a suicide note, both in digital form, via video message, and in handwritten form. We were also able to find and secure a pipe bomb, albeit a non-functioning pipe bomb, at his home.
Right now, authorities are still searching for a motive for the killings. Back here at home right now, a North Metro man is facing charges this morning in connection with a shooting that left a 15-year-old dead outside of Blaine's Northtown Mall. According to charging documents, Ayub Muhammad is accused of helping a suspect avoid arrest. Investigators say he had a gun magazine hidden in his sock when he was arrested at the scene on Friday. Police are still searching for the 2 other suspects who they believe are teenagers. Muhammad is also facing second-degree manslaughter charges for a separate shooting in February that killed a teen in Columbia Heights. Right now at the state capitol, Governor Walz is reviewing the bills passed by the legislature with plans to sign them as soon as this week. Lawmakers just finished the budget over 24 hours ago, avoiding layoff notices to thousands of other state employees. The bills cover everything from health care to education. Once the governor signs them, the state government will officially be funded for the next 2 years. However, Governor Walz did say he will likely call another special session in the coming months to adjust the state budget in response to looming federal cuts. The Minnesota Wild's team dog now has a new home. The team adopted Rookie when she was just 4 months old to be trained as a future service dog. Now, with the help of the nonprofit Soldier 6, she'll be a battle buddy for former police officer and Army vet Jared Miller. Jared told us he suffers from PTSD and used to work with canines while on the police force, but being a single dad meant having a family pet fell to the wayside.
We both were freaking out last night. I was freaking out. I couldn't sleep. It's nerve-wracking to stand out and be in this position, but we're very grateful for the people that have helped us here. I have some things that happen, whether it be panic attacks or episodes. I'm hoping she kind of can ground me on some of that stuff. and then just a companion, you know. It's going to be huge.
So he says it's even more meaningful that Rookie trained with the Wild, since he and his son Maxwell have been big Wild fans since Maxwell started playing hockey. That is awesome. Stay with us. More news and weather coming up after the break.